Okay, now, here's where it gets it starts to get cool and less technical. I want to go back to project management and the way that systems get designed, right? And we learned this cycle of how people design a system and the principles that they use as they design it. So QBE is a kind of system, yeah? So I want to think about, well, okay, what kinds of goals and priorities and principles did this Zluf guy, this guy, what was he thinking? What was he trying to get at? What guiding principles did he have as he designed QBE? And I've got two that correspond to these two goals that he had in development. Okay. So, number one, remember he wanted to make it easier, right? So the name that we attach to that kind of design principle is, it's got two names. You can call it either a user-centered approach. Okay, sorry, I ran out of space. Or you can call it end-user development. Okay, so the idea here is, remember that the system development lifecycle, right? It looks something like this. You've got all the different stages around the edges, and then you've got users here in the middle. Okay, so all the way through, when you're going through each stage, if you remember, okay, there's going to be feedback going back and forth between the users and the designers, the developers, yeah? Now, is the important thing to get? Maybe you think, well, that's obvious. Of course you should plan and design and develop with the users in mind and constantly talking to them, okay? And always having them as your goal. But that's not always being the case, okay? And many systems are still designed today without regard to users, okay? Or, they're not the primary driving force. What else might you think of? What other kinds of priorities might you have? If you're not developing mainly for users, who else are you, or what else are you developing for? Okay, right, so instead of the people who are, at the end who are going to benefit, it might be the people who are actually using it. In the case of QBE and SQL, they actually tend to be the same people. Okay, end users and participants, they kind of overlap sometimes, right? Let me give an example of something else. A system that's not very well designed for users, okay, but is very good at what it does. Can you think about, remember, under project management, I said there was this triangle. Okay, do you remember the project triangle? And there were three different things, different quantities that I was trying to balance out. Do you remember what they were? What are the three quantities?
Time.
Okay, let's go time. I think I heard money. What was the other one? Scope, good. Okay, now, more so with time and with money, not so much with scope, but can you see that as you're developing a project, right, you might prioritize getting the project done on time, right, or minimizing the actual costs that you spend, rather than having a system that's best designed for users, okay? I'll give you a classic example that I just heard recently on the news, the Northwest Rail Link, okay? Let's see if we can, not to be confused with Northwest, the child of Kim Kardashian. Look, see that? Did you see? Anyway, sorry. I don't know if you...
Northwest
Okay, now let's see here. Yeah, good. I don't know if you've been following the news. I guess I am because I live in the Northwest. They've recently signed a deal with these contractors to actually get it started building, and Northwest Rail Link people are happy and excited.
Yay.
But there's a big but, right? When they tunnel through, because it's all got to go underground, right? Because there used to be land owned by the New South Wales government to put the rail link on, on land, okay, above ground. But I think the Bob Carr government sold it. Thank you, Bob Carr. Anyway, therefore, because that land is no longer owned by the government, they've got to go underground, okay? But as you can imagine, digging tunnels is super, super expensive and difficult, right? So as a compromise, and in order to reduce the amount of cost, right, what they've done is, they said, look, the tunnels, we're not going to make them the full height and width as all the rest of the tunnels in the New South Wales rail network, okay? They've made it a bit smaller. Now you're like, well, why would you do that? Number one, to make it cheaper, right? Number two, make it faster. But what do you think is the disadvantage of having it smaller than the rest of the rail network?
Not fit as many trains.
Okay, you can't fit, not about as many trains, but you can't fit the same trains, okay? Because I don't know about you, if you travel on trains regularly, but you might have noticed, sort of, when you get in, okay, you walk in, and then you can go up or you can go down, right? And then there's, seats up here, and windows and that kind of thing, right? So these are double-decker trains, yes? The Northwest Rail Link would cut off the trains about here, right? It's not tall enough or wide enough to fit these kinds of trains, right? So what you've got is trains that are only going to be single level, and they will just operate on the Northwest Rail Link around and around and around and around, okay? And then if I wanted to go, say, to the city, I'd have to catch a train at my local station, and then I'd have to change once my train arrives at a normal station, and I get on a big train, and then that'll take me to the city, okay? So can you see here that kind of development approach sort of prioritizes these two over these guys? Why is this a bad idea for users? Why is this so detrimental to users? Any ideas?
Yeah, less users.
Why? How do you know?
Same number of users would be really
Okay, sure. So it's going to mean there's more, everyone's cramped in, okay, because there's just less space available. What else? Yeah.
You use them more hassle because they have to get off.
Ah, bingo, right. As a user experience, right, I now have to use two services, not one, right? Because I can't just get on this and it'll take me all the way to the city. I've got to change, right? And that's a user experience issue, right? All right, now let's stop talking about trains and let's go back to databases, okay? SQL, it works really well. It does its job very efficiently, okay? But it's hard for users to get at. So that's why this user-centered approach, this end-user principle towards development says, look, let's think about the people who are going to be doing the search, right? And how can we make it easier for them rather than more efficient for the software? Okay. All right. That's the first design principle. The second design principle, it's a bit tricky, has to do with this one, right? Allows users to use this database language without understanding it. What we call that is abstraction. Abstraction. Okay. Abstraction's a bit of a tricky word. I'm not gonna, because it has so many different meanings. I'm not gonna go into heaps of detail. But all it means in this context is, it allows you to use something while hiding the details of that thing from you. Okay. I'm gonna say that again. Abstraction is about allowing users, people, to use something but hiding the details from you. Okay. So, for instance. Let's go back to a transport metaphor, okay? In a car. If I want to go faster in my car, I only have to do one thing. I just get my right foot and I put it on the accelerator pedal, okay? And if I want to go faster, I push further. But I don't want to go as fast, I just push a little bit, okay? Now that's what we call abstraction, right? Because actually what the engine's doing when I press on the pedal is very, very complicated. It's got to inject fuel, and then pistons have got to do things, and then there's like all these controlled explosions and combustion inside the engine, which are making which drive the axle, which is attached to the wheels, and so on and so forth. Okay.
You wouldn't want to do all that.
No, I'm not interested in all those details, right? All I want is go faster, okay? So what that is, again, is abstraction, right? All these technical processes are all still occurring, but they're all hidden from me. All I see is the pedal. Right? Does that make sense? Now, in just the same way, when you go through and conduct this search, okay, there is actually a kind of SQL query behind this, which is still going to happen. It's the engine, the pistons, the combustion, but it's all hidden from me. All I see is the pedal, right? I just want this, right? I don't have to deal with what exact language it's written in, okay? So that's really good for me as a user. These two principles, they kind of feed off each other, okay? A user-centered approach and abstraction, okay? Really important keyword to get.